Hello everyone. So welcome to this session, and in this session I thought that I'll cover one of the frequent topics which comes up very often, how to deal with pagination. So let's start with a very basic example. So we'll start with let me just open this up URL. So this is going to be books2scrap.com, right? So this is one of the very beginner friendly websites. So let's start with that. Now this actually is a very basic website, but it will cover most of your scenarios. So typically whenever you are dealing with any kind of pagination, you will see a next button like that. So all you have to do is you have to find that next button. Okay. And that once you find that next button, all you have to do is you have to see what is the structure of this next button, right? And by structure, what I mean to say is just right click, inspect, and look at the markup. What is this next button? So in this particular case, we can very clearly see that this is a standard anchor tag. Okay. So here we can see just like that, we can see that the link to the next page is right there in the next button. And this is going to be the case with most of the websites. So unless you are in a difficult scenario, this is how it is going to be. So let's start with this one. Okay. So what we are going to do is we are going to write a spider. Okay. And the methods that I'm going to talk about today will work even if you are comfortable with Beautiful Soup. So these methods will be applicable there as well. So in case of Scrapy, we will be creating spiders and we will be yielding responses. And if you're working with Beautiful Soup, you will simply create a JSON, not a JSON, a request object basically. You'll use the request module. So let's create one project, right? So a project will be suitable for today, and let's call it Pagination. So I'm just creating a project just to keep things organized. There is no other need. So I'm assuming that you have at least a basic familiarity with Scrapy. I'm not going to go into advanced deep topics today. So Scrapy Gen Spider, and let's give it a name. So let's give it, this is books, so books, and the fourth parameter is X, and I'm just giving it X because we always have to modify this. So now I'm going to open this entire folder in Visual Studio Code. So once it opens in code, we will see that we will have our basic spider. Once I can get it to. So here we have this spider. All right. Let me zoom this up, and I'm going to hide everything else. Okay. So let's focus only on the code. So what we have to do is getting this spider running is very simple. You just go to, if you go to this page, we will end up having, let's take one of the, okay, just take science fiction randomly. There are 16 results. So let's take something. Okay. Let it be main page. So we'll start with the main page. Okay. Allowed domain is not required because we are not going to. So we are not going to multiple domains. So it's right now it is just fine. So I'm going to put this URL right here. Okay. And let's in the response, what we are going to do is very simple. Let's find something which can give us exact idea where we are. So this footer, so let's print this footer. So I'm going to keep the spider very simple, not focus on the data extraction part. So I just want to keep a track of where I am. So li current. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm simply going to use a print statement. By the way, using print statement in Scrapy is not a good idea. You should always use loggers. So for now, I'm just going to print this. Okay. very simple print statement, and this is going to be li dot current. So right now, if I run this URL, if I run this spider, what will happen? It will simply print the URL of this one. Let's limit the warning. Okay, fine. So let's look at the list of the spiders that we have. So Scrapy list. We can see that we have one spider which is for books. So let's run it. Wow. And let's limit the logging to warning because we are using print statements. All right, and let's see what it's going to print. It's just going to print a simple statement, hopefully. Okay, you know what is the mistake I did? I've been working with lot of standalone spiders these days. So if you're working with the spider which is part of the project, you have to use the crawl command. Okay, so we can see that it is simply page 1 of 50, and what we are going to do is now we are going to implement our pagination. So what we will do, we will create a selector for this next button, and this is going to be, let's see. So we have this next class right over here. So we will look for li.next, and we will look for a element inside that, and we will take the URL. And notice that the URL is a relative. It's not absolute URL. It's not beginning with http://. So we have to convert this into an absolute URL as well. So I'm fine. How am I supposed to read it? I'm sorry. The Fallen Gaming. Okay. So I'm good. Thank you. Let's also get this text, and let me put one strip as well. So this should take care of all the. Now what we are going to do is we are going to look for a next link, and it's simply going to be response.css, and the CSS is going to be li.next. Inside li.next we will look for a. So this is our next link, and we will need attr href. Okay, and dot get. Now what will happen from pages 1 to 50? Okay, all the pages. On page 1 we have next button. If we go to page 2, we will again have next button. So similarly, if we go to page 50, so let's change the URL and go to page 50. So once we go to page 50, you can see that there is no next button. So that means that if next link is not found, that means we do not want to go any further. And anyway, the URL and the URL that we want to go is also in this link. So that is what makes sense actually. So let's write a code something like this. So we will yield Scrapy dot request. Okay, and here we have to give the URL. So the URL is next link, but it's not directly. We'll have to surround this in response.url join. All right, and what is the callback method? The callback method is again going to be the parse, because we are repeating the same logic on the next page as well. So the default callback is anyway a parse, so whether we write it or, we can actually skip it. We can just leave it like that, and then parse method will be called. So let's run that and let's see what happens. So I'm going to run the same spider, and then we should see that the pages, they change from 1, it should go to 2 and so on. So you can see that it is going to one page after one page, and it will go to all 50 pages. I'm just printing the footer here. So fine, it is fine. It's fast, so let's let it run. And after page 50, that's it, and it will stop. That's it. So this was the simple case. Okay. Now let's talk about the difficult cases which can happen. Do you want to try the same thing? If you, let's look at Amazon, amazon.com. And let's look at any listing, doesn't matter. Not Amazon Music. I'm just randomly clicking whatever listing we reach. So what we have to do if we are dealing with Amazon. So in case of Amazon as well, you can see that we have a next, and this looks like a button. Okay. So with CSS, a link can be made to look like a button can be made to look like a link. So don't go into how it looks, just right click and click on inspect. Okay. And let's see. And here again, you can see that this is very, very simple actually. So yeah. So this class name is different. So here it says that this is li class equal to a dash last, and then it is a link. So eventually this is just a link. And again, this is a relative link. So you'll have to call a response.url joint and convert it into absolute URL. So this works with Amazon. The pagination part. Of course, with Amazon, if you're working with Amazon, you'll have to send all the headers that you want. Okay. So what you can do is basically in Scrapy, if you look for a property, so default request headers. So just look up for this property, not on Stack Overflow. Look for, yeah, settings. So always look in the documentation. So I just want to find that default request headers. So what you can do is, this is actually additional tip that I'm giving right now. So if you are working with a project, so what you can do is, in fact, in project, you already have a placeholder for this. So if you look for commented out code, you will already have this default request headers. So you can simply uncomment and this should work. So this is something additional that you'll have to work, you'll have to do if you're working with sites like Amazon, or in fact, as a practice, what I do is I actually do it with all the sites. And if you're working with standalone Spider, you can do exactly the same thing here as well. So what you can do is you can write custom settings, and it's going to be a dictionary, and then default request headers. So this is also going to be a dictionary like that. And then you can write all the headers. And how do you find the headers? So just press F12, go to network and look for the first request. Okay. And look for all these request headers. So you can just copy all these request headers except the cookie. You don't want cookie, and you can convert it into a dictionary. Or you can do one more thing. You can just import this scrapper helper package. So this package which I wrote for all of you, for myself actually, to be honest, but of course anyone can use. So in scrapper helper, I have included this headers. So this will actually generate, this will put all the default headers. So if you add this line, your Amazon's scrapping will not have any problem. And in fact, you can do it with every site. So this will just send all the default headers that the browser will send. All right. So let's move on to the next kind of pagination. So the next kind of pagination will be infinite scroll. Okay. So this is where we have to do some kind of work. So let's start with something simple. So in fact, let's go to scrap.com, the home page, and yeah. So Scrapping Hub, they changed their name to Zite. So yeah, scroll. So this is the link. So let's take this link. Okay. Now whenever you are analyzing any site, press F12, go to network and then start scrolling, and you will see that as we scroll down, it loads more and more items. So practically every site that is using this kind of infinite scrolling, they will always have some request which is sent when you scroll down. So you have to figure out this request. So in case of this site, it is very simple actually. So there is only one image, and if you look at this, it's a JSON. Okay, so what is JSON basically? So JSON technique, I mean, what is JSON? The question that I wanted to ask you is, what is JSON in terms of Python? Okay, so JSON is nothing but a string representation of list or dictionary, these kind of objects. Mostly either it will be list or dictionary. So what you can do is you can just take this entire result and you will have your dictionary ready, so you can read any data that you want. Now with infinite scroll, the most important, figuring this out is easy actually. Where is your data? So this figuring out is easy. What is more important is to know when to stop. Okay, so this is going page 2, page 3, page 4, but when will you stop? So maybe this site has 10 pages, maybe this site has 100, 1,000, million. You don't know, right? So this is where you have to, study the site. So there are two different ways using which you can actually determine when to stop. So the first and easy way will be that there will be some kind of property, okay, in this JSON. So for example, right now, if we look at this result, so we are on page 5, and this page 5 has this value has next. Okay, so this has next is set to true, right? So we can simply look for this has next, and let's go to the last page, which is page 10, and here you will see that has next has become false. So very simple, you can run a loop until this has next. So if you know the pages in the advance, for example, let's say that you can figure out that from the website itself, you can see that, okay, there are 10 pages, you can read it dynamically. So in that case, you run a loop for 10 times, you change the values and put that loop in your start request. Or if you do not know, then you can probably try to figure this out from the response which is returned. Okay, let me show you one more example. I have copied this somewhere. Just 1 second, I need to find it. So maybe we can see this first and then we can look at the later part. So let's create one more spider. Okay, giant spider, and let's call this scroll. Okay, and let's come to the code, Visual Studio Code. I forgot to include the fourth parameter, which is the start URL. Oh, by the way, if you have certain sites that you want to be looked at, and if you want me to analyze those sites, you can paste in. If it is not allowing the link, then probably you can remove that HTTP colon, or instead of dot put space, and then the chat will not block it. I will manually not block it for now. Okay, so this is Visual Studio Code, and so this is the scroll, and let's go to the URL. Now what we are going to do, we are going to start. Okay, there is one more thing that we can study actually. We can manually modify the page numbers and other parameters and see if we can start with page 1 directly. So here you can see that this API call, so this started with page number 2. So it doesn't mean that we have to write separate code to handle the first page. So maybe just right click. First of all, just check that if it is a GET request or a POST request. So it is a GET request. So we can just right click and open a new tab. if it is not asking for any special headers. So right now, if you look at this URL, this is page 2. But what if I manually change it to page 1? So now it is also returning the correct data for page 1. So what it means is I don't have to handle these two scenarios separately. I can just start with only one. So the first, let me store this base URL, okay? So let's put it in double quotes and I'll remove the page number. So, and instead of page number, I'll put this curly braces right over here. Okay. So this is the base URL. And now let's assume that we know that there are only 10 pages. So in that case, how do we run a loop? So let's look at the loop part first. I'm sorry. So what we are going to do, start domain and allow domain and start URL. These things we are going to remove, and let's write start request. And in the start request, what we are going to do is we are going to run a simple loop for range in for come on I in range come on so my So what we are going to do, we are going to yield Scrapy dot request, and we are going to use URL dot format, okay, and the range will start from 0 to 10. So we can either write it like that, so we don't have to do any math here. Very simple. So what will happen? Starting from 1 to 10, we will have 10 separate requests created. And in the parse, we can check, we can put a simple check. So remember that this is a JSON. So in the parse method, if you just call response.json, you will have everything, okay? You will have exactly the complete data. So this response.json, what it will do is it will take this response, which is JSON, and convert it into Python object. So this is a dictionary. So this is going to give us a dictionary, and we have this page attribute here, right? So page, current page is 1. So let's do something here as well. Let's print data.get page. So just like a dictionary, so either using get or using square brackets, we can access anything from this. So what we are going to do, we are simply going to run a loop over all those pages, and we are going to make sure that we are getting all the data, right? So let's run Scrapy crawl, and this was crawl, and I'm going to limit the log to warnings. Okay, so now this is a very important observation that you have to, this is something really, really important. The output is, it's demonstrating a very useful concept of Scrapy. So Scrapy by design is asynchronous, okay? So what it basically does is there is a separate portion to create the request. There is a separate portion to process that request, and what eventually happens is, let's come back to the code and see what we are doing here. Here we are building up 10 requests. So what we have done is actually we have created 10 requests, and Scrapy has put them in think about a pool, okay? So like a bucket or a pool, something like that. So what it has done is it has put all those requests in the bucket, but it has not yet processed. Then there will be a separate component of Scrapy which will pick one by one items from this bucket, and then it will process. And whenever the processing is complete, this parse method will be called and that response will be sent. So this is a very important topic to consider. This is a very important feature to consider and understand. So basically, because of this feature, what happens is if you go to, if I do, let's, maybe we can do something like this. So if I write my loop like this, even in that case, what will happen? Scrapy will not put a duplicate request. It will just reject all those duplicate requests. So it does not execute one by one. And that is the result that we have result of all those 10 requests, but they are not in the exact sequence that we may think. So we went to page, we got page number 1 first and then 9 and then 4. So if I run it again, probably it will be something different. So it's not a specific, this sequence is not controlled. So this is something really, really important to understand. And it's a very good example how it is working. And if you want your output to be in certain format, so and now you can see that the second last request, last 3 requests, if you look at the previous example, it was 6, 8, 10. And this time it went to 3, 2, 4. So completely different result. So all the data cleaning, and if you want data to be in certain specific format or something, so that you should be doing separately. So after your scrapping is done, then you should be doing it. Sorry, I took some time to, I took a pause here because I'm having some technical problem here. One of the process is consuming unexpected CPU on my machine right now. So I'm trying to kill it. So this is the nature of, this is what happens when you are working with live videos. So I know whenever I'm posting it, I'll edit out these parts where you just have to watch me. Alright, so let's move on to the next example. So the next example of infinite scroll is at this site. Yeah, okay. So this is a good example. Actually, this is a site which is built on Shopify. So actually, I'll give you 2 hints here. See, first of all, I'll show you 2 things. This is another example where there is infinite scroll, but there are some important things that I'll show it to you. Alright, so first thing, we are going to open the network tab. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to scroll down. And before I scroll down, take a note here. It says that total 132 products. Okay. This is important because we are going to use this number. And at one time it is showing only 8. So if I zoom out, so you can see that there were only 8. And as I'm scrolling down, more and more products are being loaded. Okay. Now if you look here, there are a lot of requests which are being sent because these images are also being loaded dynamically. So this web P, so if you should keep this type enabled. Okay. So if you look here, this XHR request, so this one is the one which is containing the data, and all these web P, so this is the images. So this is a new format. better than even JPEG. So anyway, so this XHR is what we are interested in. Okay, so let's go and look at it, and let's look at the data. Now here you will see that the data is not, it's not in the previous example that we saw. Here it was JSON, and here it is not JSON, it is HTML. But we have the complete information available here. So if we have to, scrap this site, in that case, probably what we have to do, we have to start from top and then look at this. Okay, so if there is any specific header, so I don't see any special header here. So these are all the usual headers. Yeah, so this is another hint that you should always look at headers. So in some cases, the websites will respond only with valid data only if you are sending the correct headers. So just have a look at all the headers. So here there is no special header. So what we can do is, I'm just going to open this in new tab. Okay. But what's this Shopify is doing, actually it is redirecting and it is generating the full page. So probably because of that cookie. So it doesn't matter. So in that case, what we can do is, we will start with this, and the next request we will be sending to this URL. So let's take this, actually let's solve this by example. It will be much better clear. Okay, and I'm assuming that because this is a Scrapy Shopify site, it should be more or less, it should be reusable concept. So GenSpider Shopify, and fourth parameter I have to put as start URL. So let's come back to the code. All right. So what we are going to do, allow domain, leave it like that. So we will start with this. Okay. So in this URL, whatever is there, we will process. But after that, once we come here, this is something important that I was talking about earlier, that how do you know that when we have to stop? So in that case, in this particular case, there are two ways actually. So one way is to do some math. For example, what we can do is, we can figure out at the beginning that there are 132 products, and per page there is 8. So we can divide 132 by 8, and we can get the number that these are the number of pages that we have to dynamically scrap. So that part, this all calculation we have to do either in the parse method, or we have to do in the parse method, because this number 132 will only be available in the parse. Okay, so what we will do is, let's do this. Okay, so let's do inspect, and here is the 132 products, and in fact the class is very comfortable for us. Product count should not be difficult to create a selector for this. Yeah, see, only one item. So if you just press Ctrl F here you can try out your selectors, and here we can see that only one item is there. So this selector is correct. So now that we have selector, let's find out. So let's come here, and what we have to do is, we have to do total count. How do we find the total count? So this is going to be response.css dot, because I'm using a class, and then text, and then get, and let's name it something raw. So this is going to give us this complete text. All right. So this 132 products. So what we have to do, we have to get this number 132 out of it. So if you're comfortable with the regular expression, you can use regular expression, or if you don't want to use regular expression, maybe you can, just replace it with 132 and all that. We can just, remove this products. So we can do any of these two things. So let's keep it simple for now. So we know that raw is going to convert, going to give us this. Okay. So what we will do, we will do a replace. So raw dot replace. And by the way, if you are not sure, you can always do one more thing. From scrapy.shell import inspect response. Okay, and you can use this inspect response to build up your code. So let's do it that way. So once you build your code using the actual shell, you will be 100% sure that it's going to run correctly. Wow. My Python language server is consuming 32% CPU. I don't know why. So let's come here and let's Scrapy, crawl, and Shopify. So now we are going to wait for that inspect response point to stop. Okay, wherever we have written inspect response, it should stop there. So there we have it. So now what we are going to do is we are going to check this, what we are getting. So this is the text that we are getting. Okay, so we will store this in raw. This is one thing. Secondly, we are going to go run raw.replace and let's replace products. Ideally, I would suggest that you use regex for this kind of work. Okay, if I do it like this, we get 132, and then if we convert to integer, we get 132. So this is the code that we can directly copy paste. Okay, so this is our total count. Total page, total count. So we can just copy paste. So this will give us the number 132. Okay, and now we know that out of this 132, we have 8 products per page displayed. So we have 16.5. So let's import math. Okay, and use math.seal for the 16.5. So this will give us exactly the 17. So we have to call that API 17 times, -1 actually, because first page we already got. But this gives us the complete idea how we can get the actual count. Okay, so I'm going to import math here. And total pages. Come on. So the total pages is going to be total count divide by 8. Okay, and this whole thing I have to surround in math.seal. We are not using math, the round function, because if this calculation returns something like 17.4, then rounding will make it 17, so we will miss the last page. So we want to use the seal function, so which will take it up to the next number. So these are the total number of pages. And what we have to do now is very, very simple. For I in range total pages, okay, -1. I'm putting -1 because or there is one more way. We can do 1 comma total pages, or it should be 2 total pages plus 1. Yeah. So now this fine. This loop is going to be okay. So what we are going to do, we are going to network tab and this is the API that we determined, right? So right click, copy link address, and note that this is a standard GET request. So let's send Scrapy dot request, and this is going to be the URL. And instead of this 2, what we are going to do, we are going to write format and this I. Okay, so if this is not really readable, so what we can do is we can write something like this. So every time this loop runs, it's going to create a request to a new page number. So it will go on till page number 17, right? And this range is actually going to be 1 before. So this we have put at 18, so it will stop at 17. So looks fine. So Scrapy dot request, and here if you want you can send all these headers. So this headers, if you want, you can put, but I don't think it should be a problem because there is only one thing which we need to see, accept and yeah. So everything looks fine. So what we are going to do is we are going to just get the product names. Okay, so let's see, where is the product name? Visually hidden. Really? So let's see. Grid view item. Okay, link. So we already have it here. So let's try this. So response dot CSS. Let's see if I'm getting something. I missed the dot. So it's a CSS class. Yeah, okay, cool. So what we have to do is we have to, and actually if I look at the length, it should be exactly 8. Perfect. So now this anchor tag is, okay, so it's a span. So this span is directly inside this, and what we are going to do is we are going to get the text and get all. So this should give us all the product names. Perfect. So what we are going to do is here before so this is again something that you need to know, that you need to write your pagination logic after you have processed the current page data. So how you are going to process? So how we what exactly we want here? So we actually just copied, just need to paste it. Hello Mayu. Zomato, yeah, I'll see. Actually I have never explored Zomato, so let's see today. So response.css, and Zomato is actually let's look at Zomato after this. So response.css, and this is what we are going to do. Let's simply yield it. Products, and get all. Yeah. So now what will happen? Just think about this, what is happening theoretically here. So this is going to yield the products, okay, whatever all 16 products, the name of those 16 products are going to be yielded out, okay. And then this is going to be only for the first page. And from the other pages onwards, it's going to simply create all the requests to the new page. And if I come back again here, it will do the same thing, keep on doing again and again and again. It's going to push all those things in the queue. And I'm not sure I want to try that. So maybe I will create a separate callback. So self dot parse API. Oh, come on. I have been waiting for new MacBooks for a very, very long time. And now I eventually I got tired. I've ordered a new machine. Let's see. So what we have to do here, define parse API. So I'm going to copy few things from here. Okay. I'm going to copy this and I'm going to copy this. Let's see. So this we have called Shopify. So let's run it. So Scrapy crawl Shopify. Okay, I'm running complete without any logs. So item scrap count is only 1. So we need to examine what is happening here. Sometimes I just want to switch over to PyCharm. It's much more easier there. So should I spend more time on it, or basically the main important point here is to give you the idea that you need to find the API. So I don't want to spend more time on finding exactly what I'm doing wrong here. But the main idea here is that you need to find the API. So whenever you scroll down, what happens? Which page is triggered? So you can always find the API like that. So here, so this is triggered and you need to send the request. And if it is not, giving you the expected results, take the headers as well. Take all headers except these ones. These are not required. And sometimes what I do is I'll just copy the entire thing. Okay, come to the command prompt, open IPython or Python, whatever, and use this scrapper helper function, this module that I have written. So I was actually reusing lot of functionality again and again. So inside this scrapper helper, I have this function get dict. I've just written get dict, okay, and in triple quotes. So I'm using double quotes here and triple quote format. I'm going to call this function and I'm just going to paste all the headers. And what we get is this dictionary. So I can just copy this dictionary. So I've written all the code about, like, I don't want cookies, for example, and everything. I've written everything. whatever customization is required, and this header, so this is ready to be sent. Okay, come on. So this header I can directly send it, and this is going to be headers equal to header. So if there is some header which is causing this specific API to be triggered or worked properly, then this will be taken care of. So this is the general idea. By the way, about Shopify sites, let me tell you one more secret. So I've not, birds. So what you have to do is, let's clear everything. And when this network tab is open, at that time you have to press Ctrl Shift P. P as in Paris. So it will bring up this command palette. Okay. And what you have to do is you have to type disable JavaScript. Okay. So once you disable JavaScript, so I just showed you that this page has, the dynamic scroll, right? The infinite scroll. And now you see here, just because I have JavaScript disabled, it has fallen back to this next page navigation. So actually, you know what you can do? You don't have to find the API. You can see anyway, whenever Scrapy is going to a website, it is going in JavaScript functionality not available. So you will find this next button directly over here. So just right click, and at this next button, yeah, so this is the one, right? Page 2, collections all, page 2. So you can just look for it. It's very simple. So if you notice, see here, this no script tag. So based on no script, it will have a lot of information available inside no script as well. So I recorded one video on images, which still I have to edit. It has a lot of junk. So there also it is very easy now. If you just disable JavaScript, you can very easily find this exact image. So right now it is complicated, but if I right now it's very simple. Right now if you can just click and find that inside no script. Okay, notice that there is a no script tag. So inside no script you directly have the image, and if you enable the JavaScript, then the markup will become more complex. So sometimes you should disable JavaScript and see how the site is behaving. So this is more complex. Okay, press Ctrl Shift P and disable JavaScript. Reload the page. Infinite scroll gone, and you have regular pagination, which you can handle, I'm sure. Okay, so I have one more example because this is related to ASPX. So which one you want me to cover? You want me to cover the ASPX one, or you want me to explore Zomato with you? Or if you want, I can just, show you the basics of how to handle ASPX. Let's try to do both. Not much time, but let's try to see this. So this is a site which is ASPX site. So ASPX is the older technology of .NET. They don't use ASPX anymore. But if you see ASPX in the URL, that means that it is using Active Server Pages ASP, and then X is for .NET. So anyway, so what is happening here is, if you look at the markup, you will see a lot of so this is a telltale sign, CTL00 $. So this kind of input names and IDs are generated by .NET. So let's go to network tab, and I'm just doing a blank search here. Okay, and now notice few things. Number one, this is a post request. This is not a GET request, which happens typically. This is a post request. Then let's see, what are the other things that you need to see? Just a second. Where is this? Here. So in request headers, there is nothing special, but the form data, look at the form data. This form data is huge. So every ASPX site will contain this kind of double underscore, event argument, view state. View state makes up a lot of data. View state generator, event validation. So there will be these kind of a lot of data which is being sent. And then there is event validation, a view state generator. Then you have last focus, event target. These are all starting with double underscore. And out of this, view state is the most important one. If you see view state, you know that this is ASPX. Even if they are rewriting the URLs and hiding the part that, that maybe it is not a .aspx, it is something else. But if you see that double underscore view state is being used, then it is .NET. So in that case, what you have to do is you will most probably, in fact, you will always find that the pagination is not your typical GET request. So let's click on next button and see what request is being sent. So this is the request which is being sent. So it's still loading. So once it loads, we will have more information available. Why the site has become so slow? Okay. Technical difficulties with the site as well. Okay, let's clear. Let's try pagination one more time. Okay, so now we are on page 2. And here, if you look at this again this is going to be a post request. So what you have to do is you have to understand post request very well. And you have to send all the headers and this form data. So let's see how we can do this. So what I'll do is, so that just to make this short, probably I can copy paste some code, or should I just walk you through some code? Let me show you a few things which are important. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Scrapy shell right now. Okay. So this is IPython, exit this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to open Scrapy shell. Okay. And opening this main page, the page which is actually loaded first. Oh, this is default error. No, not this one. So see, the URL is actually one. Let's start with a new search. Is there a new search? See, one more thing about .NET is that it runs one page. The URL is one page behind what is on the screen. So this is the exact URL. So let's open the shell. The shell actually already opened. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to call the fetch method. So this will open this particular site in this manner. Now what we have to do is we have to find those variables, special variables. So just looking at the code, source code. Okay. And control F, double underscore view state. So here it's a standard format that you will find. So this is how it is going to be. These are all going to be input of type hidden with name and ID both set to view state, and then it will have the actual value in the value attribute. So this is going to be true for last focus, event target, event argument, and whatever else is there. Okay. So if we just search for name, so these are 4. Then we have view state generator, view state validation. All these things are dynamic and you'll have to capture on every page. Okay, so how do you capture on every page? Very simple. Actually, now you can use CSS or HTML, CSS selector or XPath selector. So scrapy.css. Let me show you one example and then I'll copy paste. So this is ID. ID is the easiest one, right? So we'll take the ID. So ID starts with hash. So this is the ID. Come on. _view state. Okay. And what we have to find, the attribute value, attr and value. Okay. Dot get. And if this is correct, it's going to fill up the screen. No. Scrapy dot, oh come on, response.css. So you have this value. So what you can do is you can actually send all these one by one. So let's do that. Scrapy gen spider. So I'll generate the basic skeleton and then I will paste the relevant part. So what is this? Yeah, let's call it easy. And the last parameter is the start URL. Okay, so this is our basic spider. So now I'm going to do some copy pasting. See, first the start URL. So allow domain not important. Okay. So because you have to find all those things in multiple places, so what you can do actually is you can actually probably write a function like this. So I'm writing this outside the class, and probably you can have it somewhere in a common place. So what this will do, this will take the response object and it will find all the .NET related fields. If you have other fields, you can get all those fields, and it's going to return a dictionary. So what you can do with this dictionary, you can create actually a new variable form data like that. And this form data will be get ASPX fields and pass in this response. So you'll have a dictionary here. And what you can do later is all the additional fields that you have to send. Okay, so let's press F12. So when we click on search, we actually where is opening here? Open here. So click on start search, and it will send some additional parameters. So these are the parameters which actually matter. So for example, here it says AL and start search. So basically only these special controls or special form, whatever additional things that you have to send, then you can simply write, something like form data and then the field name and whatever is the value that you want to say, but and that value that you want to send. Okay. So if I write this complete code, it will be something like this. So what we are doing here is we are simply getting all the .NET related stuff, and then we are creating all these values, additional forms, additional fields that we are sending, and we are adding to the same dictionary. And once we have everything here, we can simply send one form request. Okay. So my tab key, why I don't know, maybe it is our tab moves focus, so this was enabled. Okay. So now what we can do is we can send a form request and send in this URL, and the form data we have already created, so this part is dynamic. And then what we can do is we can send the page number as 0. So this is a custom field that I'm going to send here. And why I'm doing it, I'll show it to you. So when you go to the next page here, let's clear everything. Okay, and let's see what are the fields that it is sending. So it is sending all those standard .NET fields which we have to send. Okay, so once we process all these rows, we are going to send this. So here there is a number 1 which is being sent for page number 1. Okay, if I click it again, it will be the same request. Okay, but this time it is going to send number 2 here. Okay, and in this particular case there are two ways. Now the question is how do we know that when we want to stop? So there are two ways. Number one, this is a simple next button. So we will keep looking whether the next button is available or not. If the next button is available, we will increment the page number, and this page number has to be maintained, right? So that's why I sent page number 0 here. So this will come here. So CB keyword arguments, this is something I've already covered. Yeah, there are some delays in the screen. Actually, Humayun, I don't know, I'm getting some technical errors, and bear with me for this video. Probably what I'll do is I'll re-record this video, I'll fine tune it, and I'll post it as a separate video, but I don't know if I'm probably next month I'll be able to do it. This month is hectic, and next month probably I'll get upgrade to this machine. So right now I don't know. For example, if I look at my CPU, let me show what is the problem. There are a lot of things which are going on. So look at this. This OBS Studio that I'm using to broadcast is consuming not that much of memory. But if you look at, see, my GPU performance is very high. So GPU load is very high. CPU load is also very high. And it's an i7 with 16 gigs of RAM. 4th gen i7, but yeah, decent machine based on whatever was available at that time. So this is due for upgrade. So this is probably causing this a delay, and I'm also getting warning from my studio that the stream is not healthy, and I'm actually getting this freezing up. So this is one way, by the way. So let me come back to this. So this is, in some cases you'll have to do this, or in other cases you may not even need to do this at all. So basically what you can do is you can just create your form data with the fields that you want to to change, all the fields that you want to modify. So this AL and start search, so this is going to be on the first page, and on the next page what you have to do is you have to you have to keep track of all the page numbers. So this page number, what I'm doing here is, you can see that I'm sending this next page and I'm incrementing it by 1. Okay, incrementing by 1, and this is the processing of the data. So this part probably be the first part here. So whatever data I have to process from this page will be the first thing that I need to do. So this is going to take care of exporting that data. Next, for pagination part, so we are creating all that form data, and when this runs for the first time on page number 1, this value which was received here on this page is 0, right? Because from start URL, from this parse method we sent 0, so this is 0, and this is getting incremented to 1, and then there will be a check whether the next page is there or not. Okay, so this has to be the first thing. We need to find out whether there is a next page or not. So if there is a next page, then we are doing all this, and then after that we can send a direct form request, or instead of sending a form request directly, if we use form request from response, this is the other way. So if we use form request from response, so what this will do, it will take care of populating all those .NET fields. So, but what you have to do manually, every time you need to increase the page count and then send it one by one. So this is something that you have to do manually. There is no other way that I can think of right now. And these two fields are actually, I've tried it. Some of the fields are not important. They are just position of X and Y coordinates of the next button. So even if you keep them same, doesn't matter. And this is some kind of code, and yeah, these two are some kind of code. So basically we just have to send this next page, and if I run it, I get all the data. So this code basically I'll share, but the whole idea is you go to next page and then you keep track and send it. You keep on incrementing and send it. Let's look at Zomato if I can find it quickly, otherwise I will wind up. So Zomato, what do you want me to analyze? So it's going to okay, I need to go. Okay, let's see, look at this page itself directly. Okay, so we are opening the network tab and I'm scrolling down. So this is a fetch request. Okay, now the important point for us is to see where is this data coming from. So you can see that it is a post request. It's sending cookie. Okay, and this is the request payload. Okay, so this is the entire data that is being sent. So you have to send entire data. And what we are getting here. This is the restaurant list. So you have all the details here in this. So this is the metadata and these are the search result. Okay. See, this is important here. It says that let's focus on the pagination today. Okay, so because you need to understand one basic concept. If you understand that basic concept, you will be able to get data from every site. So there are only few basic concepts which will be, which you have to tweak. So there are some important things here that I want you to focus on. Number one, the headers are very important. So always pay attention to headers. So there are few important things which I can see here. So number one, this is a post request, right? So if you have to send the form request or request using the the post part. So that post, how to send post requests, that should be very, very clear to you. Okay, and then this is another important header, application/JSON. So this content type has to be specified. Then cookie, you don't have to worry about cookies if you're working with the Scrapy specifically, because Scrapy will take care of maintaining the cookies. Okay, then there is one more important header here, this CSRF. So this one is again something very important. So this you have to find dynamically and send it with every request. Okay, and how you are getting the next more and more restaurant displayed here, that will be inside this request payload. So this is again a JSON, so which is good. So there is this delivery subzone and all that. So let's scroll down, and there is, see again, every time there is one event and then home. So you also have to do the same thing. So see, these images are not important, but every time I scroll down, there is one event and there is one home. So you have to, follow the same thing. So you have to send a request to event, and then you have to send request to home. And basically what you have to do is you have to compare the data which is being sent in the payload. Okay. So how is the data which is differing? Because headers are same, there is no change in the header. So I mean, the basic idea is going to be the same. Some sites will make it more difficult to scrap, and some site will make it, less difficult to scrap. Right now, I don't want to go into the legality. So Zomato is something which does not allow. So I have not practically tried to scrap Zomato. But for the purpose of understanding the basic concept, this is going to remain the same. Send one request to event, send whatever data it is sending, find out all the data in the headers, find out all the post data, and from the home as well. So you have to follow the same way, whatever they are doing here. Take care of headers. Take care of headers, and it should be fine. And if there is any specific code that you want me to look at, then of course you can share. Any other site that you want me to look at? Otherwise, we can call it a day today. Okay, so I've disabled the slow mode. So if you want anything, otherwise we can call it a day. Anyway, if you are watching this later on, or if you have more things, you can just leave in your comments, and I'll try to find the solution and answers to your problems. All right, that's all for today. I'll see you the next time.